I'm a collective member at Liberated Lens, which is a film collective here in the basement. We meet every Monday at 7 p.m. Everyone's welcome. We share gear and knowledge and studio space, and you're in the Omni Commons. There's bathrooms back there and up here. Feel free to come up to the table, or Benny can pass out some flyers if you need. Just raise your hand. We have the syllabus, which is a handout you can take home. Pens and paper, pens and pencils to write on the back, jot notes, and then some propaganda about the march coming up in a week from today. So I'm going to go over some of the basics for video recording on your phone. Not live streaming, but looking to get different shots, smaller focus shots, interviews, B-roll, wide shots, all these kind of perspectives in order to put together a short video later on editing. So instead of like recording it live and just having one take that you cover the whole thing, and then when you turn it off, it's automatically uploaded and that's what's on there. We're just looking for like highlights, small pieces, the best aspects that really show it. And one of the benefits, I think, of recording it is you have a lot more control over the content. You can be more focused with your messaging. You know, a lot of people are watching really short videos, 30-second, 1-minute videos. So it could even be something around that, where we interview several people for 5 minutes each, and we take the best 15 seconds, plus a shot of like the largest angle of the crowd, and some close-ups on people's banners and things like that, and a little bit of a story of how the day went. Recording speakers as well, you know, maybe the main people who are presenting at these actions, who really have some of the most like factual or highlighting people's stories that really need to be heard. The speakers often at an event are really important for audio. You can get really great sound bites from that. So I'm going to start just at the beginning where we have preparation before. Some bullet points that are just basic to go over for any kind of protest, action, event that you're looking to record and create a small video from. So at the top, research. It's always good to come in as prepared as possible. So looking on like the Facebook event, at the description, that's often a lot of like bullet points on why people are marching. What are they coming together around? What are some websites that you can look at in order to find out more information? And I would copy the text that you see throughout your research, the really best parts, and save it. Because later on, when you post that video online on social media, you're going to want some text in the description to have your video be found, for it to come up on searches, for people to kind of read more about it and see websites about the organizations putting on the event where they can find out more. Because for a lot of the work that I try to do, we're trying to highlight the stories that are not being told, that are fighting against injustices, and elevate them. So being able to also get exposure and have people activated is a really important part of it. And so ways that people can find out more and get in contact with the organizations is a way that they can see your video, be so inspired by it, and then move to the next step. So you want to make sure you kind of cover all of those aspects. And in the beginning, as you do the research, and you look into the organizations that are involved, and maybe reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm going to be at the protest, I want to film. Is there anyone specifically I should talk to? Could I meet with you 15 minutes before to just get acquainted and maybe do a quick interview? Because I mean, some of the organizers can speak sometimes the best, and to like let them know you're coming and be prepared is great. And then also when you're filming, they know who you are. They know that they can trust you a bit more because you took that time to reach out before and tell them about the project you're working on and what you're looking to do with it. And also the organizers are the ones that are connected to so many people who care about this. And in order to really have your video be seen, you want to almost provide it to them to be able to share. So reaching out to them beforehand, when things are, you know, is a good idea to give them a heads up. Start that relationship, and then when you're done with the video, you can send it to them. You know, maybe you post it on your side, or you give them the raw video, and then they can share it, and then you really get the numbers up and the impact up. So that's a way in the beginning that you can really be prepared to make your video as successful as possible. Next would be to write down the interview questions. So on a piece of paper, you know, you don't have to like get too complicated. On a notebook, write down, let's say, 5 questions or so. 6 questions that you think would be really helpful, you think maybe are even really basic. Even the most simple ones, just every single question that you're going to want to ask people. Because in the heat of the moment, you know, you can lose track of what's going on, or have a lot of things going on, or most likely your phone is giving you issues and there's technical issues that you need to deal with, and there's only so much capacity, so it's really nice to have it prepared and ready and things like that. And also a notebook is nice to bring as well, because you can write down people's information, You can make sure that you're spelling their name right. They can write down their information and things like that. So that's part of the research, writing down questions. As you see, here's a list. For example, like a very basic order that you could use or pull ideas from. Introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, maybe an organization you're with. Even if this isn't used in the interview, it's good to get the spelling of people's names, and if they're with an organization, be able to put that as text in the video or in the description, and that can help connect people. Well, who's speaking? You know, where are they from? What's their name? I want to look them up online and learn more. So it's a good way to really help make that interview be like informational, complete, so people can pursue that. Or if they're just like a random person and it's a local issue, it's good to establish like where they're from, or they're a resident of Oakland if they're fighting about Oakland issues. What's going on here today and why? You know, you're going to be running around filming an event, and it's nice to just get a little update from everybody on like, what is this event, the very basics, you know, and why they're here and why it's important to them. And then it's nice to dive in maybe a little emotional. Tell us a story, tell us how this impacts you, tell us why this is important to you. And it's those kind of emotional stories that you can get tearjerkers or really detailed information or first-hand accounts that maybe haven't been shared that much before, that are really the core reasons that bring people out to the streets to be at these actions events and rise up. And so recording those stories, that's kind of the emotional, most like maybe important information that you want to get, but you also need to lay out some context in the questions that you're asking. So it's good to kind of have that idea when you're writing up questions. And then I like to look into the future. Like, people are in the streets, they're marching, there's a lot of history and descriptions and reasons for being there, but what do people want to see? What's the positive solutions? What's the direction we're trying to go in? Are we trying to make sure that every single person in Oakland has a home? You know, we're talking about that there's 4 vacancies for every homeless person in Oakland. You know, that's like the details, the facts, but are we talking about how to get the people in there? What would a transition look like? If we start to hear a lot of people in the streets saying the same thing over and over, that gets that public consensus. You know, that gets that journalistic approach where you're gathering data and information, and you know, you're not corrupted by oil companies or big mainstream companies that are censoring a lot of the stuff that we see on TV and the news. Like, how can you show what the public is actually saying in a direct way? And then I also like to ask the people who I'm interviewing, like, what's your call to action for the people watching? Like, what would you have them do? What are ways that they can get involved, that they can learn about an organization, they can show up to volunteer, they can hear about the event that's happening in a month, which helps especially if you're interviewing an organizer or someone who put on the event, who's a community organizer. They'll especially have ideas around that. And then at the end, I like to, the last question I always try to remember is is there anything else you'd like to share with me? Because often people might have a certain perspective or aspect or message that you weren't able to ask in the questions that then they'll share, and you realize, oh yeah, wow, that's so important. And it also gives variety. Which, you know, you don't have to ask these questions for everybody. You can ask everybody varying questions. You can ask everybody just one question. You know, it's really based on how short you want the video, you know, who you're interviewing and what they have to offer and share. Okay, next point. Packing your bag, you know, being ready beforehand, making sure your camera's charged and you got it in there. You got a cable to charge it with a wall outlet in case things get really bad and you run out of battery and you need to run to a restaurant or Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever, go in and use an outlet and charge up for 15 minutes and go back out. But it's always good to bring, if you can, a backup battery that, you know, a lot of people have seen is that have the cable that goes in your phone that you're able to plug in and then almost somehow hold and do both at the same time. If you're just filming nonstop, find a way to make that work. And with a live stream setup, if you have a monopod or a selfie stick, you could almost attach it to the stick with the camera, tape it on, rubber band it on, and then you can plug it in easily and not have it get in front of the camera or your screen. But these are really important because using the phone, having the screen on, especially with high enough brightness, you're outside and it's hard to see the screen, will really eat up the battery. And so will filming nonstop. Live streaming definitely eats up the battery. So there's different ways to be able to have your phone last as long as possible, but you need to bring out extra battery power and juice and ways to recharge because this will eat up your battery really fast.
Screen brightness.
Yeah.
Screen brightness will kill your battery.
Turning the screen brightness down. I'll get a little bit more into the details in the next part, but in your bag, you also want to make sure you bring snacks and water. You're going to be running around all day, interviewing people all day. It gets tiring. You want to stay hydrated. You want to not get hungry and have that take over your mind space. And then, yeah, as I said earlier, notebook, pens, and pencils. So the next bullet point is safety. Based on how dangerous the action may come, unless you have press credentials and a nice big fancy camera, if you're filming from your phone, the police are probably going to just see you as someone who's involved in the protest, and if they're deciding that they're going to arrest people, there's a likelihood that they might arrest you, and that is, a worry at some of these actions as, people get more desperate with the housing crisis that's going on and the situation in this country. So it's good to always be safe and tell your family, friends, maybe one or two people who you trust, where you're going to be that day and when to check in with you, like when the protest is winding down. So in case you do get arrested, you have someone who's looking out for you. And you want them to know your name, full name, make sure they know the spelling that's on your identification, and your date of birth so they can help find you and where you're going to be at so they can look for the closest police stations. And it's always good to write down their number with a permanent marker. It doesn't have to be exposed, but you put it down on your stomach or something like that, because they're going to confiscate everything from you when they arrest you, and you want to be able to look at that number. You get one phone call and tell them, hey, I'm at this jail, come bail me out, or let me know that I'm here, keep an eye on me, make sure I'm all right. And it helped me get out and make sure, and help me get my phone as well as soon as possible. And let's see, continuing on that, I have a lock on my phone, so anytime that you turn your phone on, you've got a passcode in order to get in there. And that's really important because one of the initial ways that if you do get arrested and the police detain you or they take your phone, they're going to try to get into it to delete the video instantly, remove it, use it as evidence against you. And you want to just be ready that anybody doesn't get access to your phone. So before you go, I put on a pin, or it's called like a pattern, but do not use biometrics. Do not use the phone, like the fingerprint, the eye scan, the face detection, because the police can just bring that phone up to you and unlock it, because you're in their custody, or they can force you to use your finger to touch the phone to unlock it. So you want to do a pin or a passcode or a swipe or something like that. And then, let's see. Then the next point is optional, which I like to do, and depending on your bandwidth. If you have a phone that you have a lot of bandwidth and you're able to upload the videos after filming, there's apps, and usually if people have a Gmail, they have a Google Drive, which is a cloud storage, so you can upload files. And one of the options is that you can have it back up your photos and videos instantly after you're done recording. So that's always a good way to, not only like you're filming all day, you record one clip here, you record one clip there. In the background, if you keep your phone on and your data on and you have the battery power, it'll start automatically uploading those videos. So if something happens or it gets confiscated, you have a copy waiting for you at home, or other people can access, if they can access your Google Drive, Dropbox, pCloud, or any of the other ones that are out there. And the idea is that then you download that app, which is Dropbox or Google Drive, to your phone. You go into the settings and you look for like automatic upload or back up my photo library or something like that. And then you go into those settings and you want to make sure that it uses your mobile data. And that's like, if you want instant backup, it's going to eat up a lot of memory or bandwidth. So you have to have unlimited and be able to do that, and realize it's going to also suck up more juice when you're filming. But that's really the safest way. Or you can turn it on to Wi-Fi only, which then, like let's say after a protest, you go home, it automatically backs it up, and then it's just a good backup anyways in case anything happens to your phone. It's always good to have 2 copies of your video at all times. Yeah, this is a great time for questions. Yeah. I think iCloud does, iCloud does an automatic backup. I'm not too sure if anyone has an iPhone and knows how it works. Feel free to hop in. But, the iPhone, it does like iCloud do a photo backup and video backup, do you know? Yeah. And so there's...
it has like a certain amount of space when you first get it. And then if you want to purchase more space, you can go into there, and I think, is it 30?
I think that's expensive.
It's like, it can be, but there's different prices. So.
Yeah.
you can pay $1 for, how many gigs is it? It's like 5 gigs, something like that.
Yeah.
Then it goes up and up and up and up depending on how much you want,
Yeah. Well, let me say one thing real quick about that. And the thing is, Google Drive and Dropbox and stuff, they start with a basic 2 gigabytes, 15 gigabytes, so you can always get in for free for starters, and then look for that paid price. And then over here?
How secure are those online backups?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the downsides, is that like you're giving it to Google and then it's on their cloud. The thing is though, regardless, like the police would have to file a subpoena that goes through Google, kind of like when that San Bernardino shooting happened and they were trying to get onto like Apple and then Apple said no kind of thing. Google is more likely to work with the police than Apple is. So that is a risk. But the thing is, like, yeah, you have to balance out. Do you think they're really going to go to like that extent, or is it more important to have your videos backed up? So that's a question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, but you know, look at the technology. I bought a 3 billion byte, trigabyte, whatever they call that shit. You know, portable hard drive, less than $100. That's the best way, to me.
Yeah. To back up your own data at home when you get home. Exactly.
Yeah, and then you got it.
Is that external drive?
Which is basically where after you film.
An external drive. It's about $100 now for 3 kabillion bytes or whatever it is.
Yeah. So yeah, a terabyte.
Terabyte.
So yeah, that's basically what he's saying is like just back it up yourself. After you're done for the day, it's a great like rhythm, especially with data when there's no tapes and stuff, to go home, plug it into your computer, make a copy, then you have a copy on your phone, copy it to your computer, copy it to another hard drive, make sure it always exists in 2 places because they always die. Because you know your footage is really valuable and these events are really important, and it's always good to hold on to it. You never know when someone's going to ask for it, you're going to want to use it again and things like that. And you don't want to be in the middle of a project editing it and then a hard drive dies and it all goes. Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's not a bad thing if you do something in the middle of your work. Because we went out to Sacramento and we filmed this entire project. And the battery went bad on us, and we lost the whole thing.
Crazy.
So had we stopped,
yeah, halfway,
and then
backed it up,
and then so you got to know where your battery is. So if it's kind of iffy, you might stop, turn it off, and then turn it back on, so you can't lose the entire thing. We lost the whole day. Bad.
Yeah. So moving on to the next section, we're going to talk about while we're there, while we're filming, right before we were about to start filming, as we show up, what does it look like? What are some things we can go through? So first thing is to like look at the settings on your phone and think about like, how much battery power do you really need? Is it going to be a super long day and I don't need the internet? So turn your phone on airplane mode. That'll help save a lot of battery power because it's not checking the internet and checking all these apps and everything else. It'll double it. There's also power saving mode, which you can turn on, which like limits the amount of activity in the background and give you like 15% more time to film.
iPhones, if you are under a certain power, it automatically puts you on, it'll say like, it'll come up like, say like for instance, if it goes to 20%, at 20 and 10%, it goes to, it'll ask you like low power mode. And then you can just press low power mode. But if you press no, then it's gonna burn it out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and the thing is also, once you get down to that like desperate small percentage, the brightness will really decrease, and then you might be like, oh, I'm losing it and I'm only halfway through. So try to like
Gotta have the battery.
Yeah, or have a backup battery that you can like plug in and plug in.
What is it?
No choice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, those are definitely super helpful and can like rejuice your phone totally 100% again. And filming on your phone all day, like it will go dead. So that's one way to do it. Turning down screen brightness is another thing we were talking about. Like if it's at max screen brightness, that's going to eat up the battery and you're looking at that screen filming. So you just have to find that middle ground between I can see what I'm looking at when I'm recording, but maybe bring it down 50% to preserve the length of the battery, because that's really what's going to eat up the battery a lot.
A question on that.
Yeah.
Does the brightness of the screen have any bearing on what the filming
Nope.
takes?
No, the camera will continue to record at what usually I recommend automatic to start, and then going to the manual settings as you feel more comfortable. But automatic on these phones is generally pretty good. You can even tap the screen to focus or expose for like someone's face while you're filming. But it'll always record at those settings no matter the brightness level and stuff like that. And if you are getting really low on battery and you're filming for like a really long time, you might want to just like take a break and stop it so it can save that video, because sometimes if it gets interrupted and your phone dies, it could corrupt the whole file and you lose it. So always good to like stop and whatnot. And the last thing on here is to turn your phone to silent if you're able to and can remember to turn it off that later, because a phone call in the middle of an interview can interrupt the audio, which isn't the end of the world. You can ask again and stuff, but if you're really someone speaking or an event's happening and a phone call pops up, it can be super distracting, and then the ringer's going off, and even a vibrate, even if it's on vibrate, then the vibration of the phone will interrupt the audio, so you want to just be sensitive of that. But turning your phone on airplane mode should take off most of that, even though like notifications and stuff might come up and make noise. So silence, putting it on silent mode is probably the best. We talked a little bit about the ethics, but I'll go over it again. You want to ask people permission before you get close to them and film them. Usually you're in a public space and you can like back up and get that wide shot where people are so small it's hard to identify them, and that's generally seen as like okay, filming at a protest. But like once you're able to recognize people's faces and what they're wearing, that can later become evidence and used against people there. So you really have to be careful and understand what's going on, because there's a conversation of how much are you trying to publicize this event and see people and engage with people and connect with people and see their faces and hear their stories, and how much do you want to be aware that the police and the state are using this as evidence against us. And one person in a protest can do something illegal that then gets everyone in trouble. You know what I mean? And then they'll look at the video evidence from live streamers and people who post stuff to see who was there and connect their images, and then bring them to court and put pressure on them to be able to like, snitch, rat people out, get people in trouble, all those kind of things. So that's something to really think about, and at these really like actions that people are really upset and really trying to, they're struggling to survive, you might not want to get people's faces as much. Or if people are marching, you get the back of their heads marching, instead of the front where you see all their faces coming at you.
So basically, just try to keep everybody anonymously on the video, but taking videos of the event, but just putting it at an angle that you really can't recognize who it is.
Yeah, and
but wouldn't the police know physically what they, what their shape is?
Yeah, it just makes it hard. You want to make it as hard for them as possible, and there is no way to do it perfectly. Yeah. So I'm trying to like make people aware of it, and then like for example, someone's speaking at a rally, and people are watching them. There's an angle you can go to where you're seeing a lot of people's faces in the crowd, but maybe you want to hop from the perspective of people, get the back of people's heads, or be really close that you don't see as many people, but the speaker, generally for at protests, they're willing to be seen, and they're the ones who should be filmed the most and want to be filmed. So that's like, focus on the speaker. Go around, ask someone for permission to do an interview, and then, if they feel comfortable and whatnot, they'll give you permission, and then you can go into greater depth. And then if you're trying to get close-ups and B-roll, the wider shots, that are safer, the ones maybe with people holding banners in the front who are like more willing to be interviewed and seem to be reacting to cameras and other cameras being on them. And then close-ups on signage, the banners, the signs people bring, because that also is like text messaging that helps develop the story, but doesn't really give away an identity. But that's obviously like an extreme case. Most of these protests, you're peaceful, you're good, you're filming the crowd, everyone's, there's kids running around, people are happy about it. So I'm just giving you a heads up of like, how to be most prepared. And also when illegal activity is going on, it's like, what is the purpose of filming it? Like, are you filming it because there's potential for police brutality that's happening? And it could be evidence to be used against the police and defend the people that you're working with. Or is someone resisting the police and doing something that can be used against that person? So you really want to be conscious of it. And yeah, filming the police is always good to make them know that there's a presence, that they're being watched, especially live stream. Be like, oh, I'm live streaming right now. You let them know that, because they can't like instantly delete that and whatnot. If they come for your phone, there's a nice like setting on your phone that you can make it so when you turn it off, you have to unlock it in order to get back in. But the phone will keep recording. You know, so that's a great like tool to have if you're live streaming. You know, if someone's coming from your phone, they're like, you're under arrest, we're taking your camera. Lock it so they can't be like, you know, end video, delete entire video on the live stream. You know, which is like, that's a moment to like make that decision. And if you're recording, you know, like put it to sleep, you know, something, and then if they take your phone, which, you know, you can say, you know, which is a security part, we're jumping to like later on point, but which is like, you know, you don't want to resist and be moving your phone away so much, because then they might have more of like a reason to grab for you, but you want to just have a slight moment where you can lock it, make sure it's safe, let it keep recording, because then they don't know it's recording. You can tell them if you're like, I'm recording, I'm live streaming right now, and that might be like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna like, you know, I'm less likely to break the law because I know I'm being watched right now by people online. Which is, you know, use it for or against, choose in that situation how you want to go about it. Because
Are you going to go over like the physical phones and techniques?
Yeah, that's
yeah. Right now we've got maybe like 10 more minutes. I'm going to go through the rest of like tips while we film, and then we'll do questions, and then everyone pull out their phone and we can start practicing right now, and I'll go around and we'll go around and be answering questions and have it be interactive. And then once we get past that, we'll talk about the things that we've learned from that, and then start to do mock interviews with each other where we can see how the audio sounds, like see how the framing is, talk about things like that. So, I mean, we're about halfway through. I think it's 3 hours, yeah, and we're at like an hour and 15 minutes in, so that's about what the rest of the day is going to look like. Okay, so I was talking about security when filming the police, and just want to put these out there so you can be thinking about how to keep your data safe, how to keep your phone safe, how to keep you safe, and how to keep other people safe. Because also, when there is like someone who's going to be arrested, when there's a camera on that situation, the police act differently. And so you can really be responsible for a lot of people's security, especially a live stream. So like, you want to like assess a situation, you know, is someone in the middle of throwing a brick through a window, or is someone like just totally like unnecessarily being targeted by the police because they're standing there, and then the police want to start arresting people and make people feel like, you know, afraid and that they shouldn't be there. You want to make sure that they're being watched, they know that they're being watched, and things like that. So, next is point 3, filming. So as was mentioned earlier, you know, it's natural to film vertically like this, which is also called portrait mode, but I'm recommending everyone goes horizontal because that's the way that we see a lot of the footage that makes it onto the news, the footage that can be used in other people's videos, the way that people watch YouTube, everything is still horizontal. And then, you know, people on Instagram are going here. So who's your audience? You know, but horizontal is always the best way to go, because like it works on all platforms. You have like a nice, like you're able to compose shots way easier. And the thing is like, yeah, if your video does get picked up and put on the news, or you're able to share it that way, like that's how they're more likely to use it, you know, if it's horizontal. Plus, it gives you a way to hold on to it well on both sides. You know, don't block the camera with your finger, but having that really steady two-handed approach is a lot more stable than here. You won't notice it, but there's like a little bit of like you trying to balance the phone that'll show up on a bigger screen later. So having 2 hands on it is always really good. And you can like tap, let's see. You can just like tap, record, and stop really easily. You know, so having like 2 hands on it, and then having that record button right there, and then having like, also, you want to be really smooth with your movements, extra smooth, smoother than you think you need to be. The slower, the better, the more gradual, because that stuff shows up later, and also the phones aren't the fastest, best cameras out there, so they're a little jittery. So you want to like make sure that all your motion is smooth, because later in the editing room, as it gets put on like a full screen computer, you're going to see all those little bumps, all those little motions. So it's good to like take your time. Like if there's a lot of people marching, you know, you might be interested in just 10 seconds of it, but record for 30. You know, something might happen. You know, you might mess up. There might be a bump in it or something. Like, you know, get the footage you need. Get the shots long enough. Make sure you put a few seconds before, a few seconds after, and any motion do really smooth. You know, and if you're walking, you want to be conscious of like that bump when you're walking. So like when walking or walking with a protest, like try to really like smooth it out. Ninja moves. Sorry, yeah, you got that, Dennis? Walking backwards too, be really careful. Walking backwards like this, it's always good to like have a look behind you because there's people walking around, curbs, potholes, all kinds of things that can trip you up. One of the main points that maybe isn't on here is like bring a friend. If you really want to get serious about documenting this and making sure that all aspects are covered and someone's maybe helping you with the questions or they're carrying the bag because you're going to be carrying a camera all day and it can be a lot. And then when you're walking backwards and you're moving around, they can watch your back. They can have a hand on you and guide you as you're walking backwards. And also it's like good to have the support. You never know when the police are coming for you. They're like, you're under arrest. They're like, no, I'm a citizen journalist. I'm a journalist. No, I don't want to be arrested. Turn off the phone, and then you're getting arrested. Hand it to your friend, and then they have your phone for security and things like that. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. You never know what happens. Obviously, like when filming, you want to make the presence that like as professional as possible. And you can tell people you're a journalist. You don't have to say citizen journalist if they want to know more about it. Yeah, I'm a citizen journalist. I'm an independent journalist.
So how do you, is there like permission or application to be, I know we're all citizens and we can report it, but is there another way to really say that you're a journalist?
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning. You're a citizen journalist. We're all citizen journalists. It's all like our duty to be active in recording and sharing these stories and being involved, and we all like care deeply about these issues and we know about it, and who out there can tell you're not. Next step is like you have a website, you have a blog, you have something like that, you have a business card, and then you can present that and you can tell people, oh, I write for bunkerfilms.com, I write for Liberated Lens, I'm a journalist with the Omni Commons. You can start to like give some more credibility to it and who you write for, and that would be the next step. The next step is you actually work for, you had your videos shared on a major platform, and you can be like, I'm a contributor to
Democracy.
Yeah, Democracy Now!, let's say. Hey, if you've had your videos shown or publicized, on something like that, you can be like, I'm a contributing editor or contributing writer or contributing videographer to these publications. You're all trying to build your credibility so people in the moment be like, okay, well, if you're a journalist, you need to leave now, you're going to be arrested. Or, yeah, right, you're under arrest kind of thing. And it also just like, it can gain access to areas to film angles that aren't available to normal people. Behind the police barricade, or in an area when maybe they're asking everyone to move and you're going to be like, where should a journalist stand? Obviously don't talk to the police, but that's a way that they can maybe be like, okay, I'm not going to arrest this person. Like press are standing over there and they won't be arrested, but you can't move from that spot. And then you've got a safe zone that you can be at the protests all day and film, but you have to like comply with them to that degree. Two hands, yeah, smooth movement. So audio, point 4. Audio is more important than video, whether we know it or not, because it's those sound bites, those once-in-a-moment opportunities that are going to really be most important for the video. You can always record again, get another shot, cover it up. But audio, you really have to be thinking about like when you've researched an idea for a video, or you have a certain angle you want to take, or the organization is asking for certain kind of questions and ways to promote them, you have to be thinking, well, what's the script going to look like? What am I going to be asking people? What are people going to be saying? And capturing that audio, sometimes you only have one chance. So it's important to be conscious of that, and there's a difference, like let's say if this gentleman here, Benny, is talking, if I'm filming back here, on a phone, the microphone is right here, it's got all this distance to travel to try to hear what he's saying, and people are yelling and screaming and everything else, this is too far. So you want to come in close. This would get the best audio, but the video won't be usable. So you have to make that decision. It's super loud, and someone's saying something really important, you turn that video camera into an audio camera, and you get the microphone there and start recording there. If it's super, super loud, and you've got to hear what they're saying, but you can cover it up with protests and people marching. But you want to try to get both, the video and the audio at the same time. So here's a good distance, where you can sort of frame up, from their like waist to the top of their head, or even closer, like right about here. This is a close-up, this is like a medium shot, and those are all like, you can get close enough with the phone, and the audio is within distance where they're the loudest thing talking right at you, being recorded by the microphone. And then you got the best audio possible with one of these.
Just to back him up on that, I've seen situations where we messed up the audio and the video it's worthless. Sometimes if you get a good audio, you can actually just take a picture of the person and put it in the film through editing. So you can edit, you know, but the audio, once the audio's gone, you've been boned. It's really no good.
Mention we could get the second microphone.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, if you want...
Are there external mics that can get for
Perfect, great question. Yeah, so if you want to go to the next level, there's places like you can get pretty cheap, like they're called like lavalier microphones that you clip on to someone's shirt. And they're basically, you want to look for the one that's got like the headphone jack that goes into your phone, and they even make ones for like around $25 that you can get at Looking Glass, which is a camera shop in Berkeley that's made specifically for smartphones and has a little switch where it'll make sure that the audio gets picked up. And so if you got an old enough phone, which isn't one in the last year where they're like take away the audio jack, you can plug in that microphone here, like let that cable dangle and clip it onto their shirt. You know, if you want to be really fancy, put it up their shirt, but you're like running and gunning, so just clip it on, and then suddenly that microphone is right there. And your camera can back up or whatnot or go wherever, because that audio is coming from that microphone that's clipped onto them. There's also like adapters you can get for a little shotgun, like a pointing microphone here and there. But like the lavalier would be the next thing I would get.
That's the wireless.
Wired, one long cable. If you want to go cheap, wireless can get hundreds of dollars. So if you want to start real simple and easy, get like a cable lavalier microphone that clips on and has a little fuzzy thing to prevent the wind from making too much noise. And then you'll see a great improve in your audio. Obviously, take it home, test it on yourself, see how it is. You know, if someone hits it, it ruins it. If someone's shuffling, if the wind is blowing, you might want to stick it in their shirt or something, because the shirt can help block, like on a really windy day. There's Looking Glass Camera, which is in Berkeley, Berkeley, I think.
Bought it like yesterday, Best Buy.
Is that Best Buy?
Best Buy, yeah.
It's on Ashby.
Huh?
It's on Ashby off San Pablo.
Yeah. So I know that's where I got mine, like cell phone cable I should have brought, the lavalier microphone, but it's about, I think, $25, but also, yeah, Best Buys have them as well and things like that. Cool, so.
My name's Clark Sullivan, and I've been a live streamer now since 2010, since smartphones first became available and the technology was first used. And I was immediately fascinated by it because of about a year later is when Occupy started, and I was working with a group called Global Revolution out of New York City, and they had set up a website that had 300 occupation cities on it where we had a live stream that was going from each city that was pretty amazing at the time. And I actually don't think there's been any live stream technology that's gotten any more sophisticated. That was kind of a high point in at least in our circles that we travel in. I think Twitch and the gamer technologies these days have more live streamers backing them. But that doesn't mean that political live streams are still not popular. And also inducing change in society, that was another reason that I got involved with live streaming. Then go back a little bit farther than that, I was a journalist before then. I used to publish magazines. I had my own radio show on KUSF. And I was a house DJ for parties. And so doing live streams was kind of a natural extension of technologies, is something that something I was interested in. And being an activist, I could see there was a lot of potential for the use of these technologies, and and I did a lot of writing about it, blah blah blah, and it's very predictive about the future. That, like, the movement Black Lives Matter would have never happened unless there had been live stream photographers that were able to upload their information about the police and stuff like that. And that's primarily where we started out with Global Revolution. We were giving free phones out to people, and we had the money, and we're like, if you see anything or hear anything, make sure you get it on a live stream. And so I was using this as a journalism tool. I've done 619 live streams. Live streams are very much different than shooting video, because you don't, like video you shoot with, you just want to get shots, so to speak, whereas a live stream is a continuous shot, right? You don't get the, I mean, you can stop and then go to, like, sometimes you have to break them up, but for all intents and purposes, it's one shoot. And I guess we could go into a little bit of back techniques about it. You want to keep everything, the number one thing is that you want to keep everything as simple as possible, right? You don't want to, I don't know, just when you're out there and the thing, there's going to be a lot that you're going to have to pay attention to. The action, there's always elements of danger, traffic, and so you have to be very aware of what's going on in back of you, as well as for you, as what you're trying to shoot. So you want to keep everything, so you don't have to pay a lot of attention to any single thing, because it'll really take away from the quality of your broadcast. Where can we get started? The simplest way, another thing about live stream cameras, since it's on your smartphone, unless you invest money in a phone that has a telephoto lens on it, you're not going to be able to get close-ups. That's another thing that's different.
Could you tell us what kind of phone has what that means and what
Okay, well, a telephoto lens is something that you can use to focus on something in the distance.
Okay.
And there's only, I think, the only one that I saw that was on the market that was worth a damn was the Samsung had a phone out years ago, about 5 years ago, and there hasn't been anything since.
So it doesn't have it anymore?
No, basically it's built into your phone.
Thank you.
I think iPhones have them now, but I have not had a chance to use an iPhone, so can't afford it. So getting to your phone is you want to keep it simple and basic. Just any old phone will do pretty much for a live stream. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a special lens or spend a lot of money on the phone, because that's not the most important part of the tools that you're going to be using when you're doing live streams. So keep it simple, just a basic model. Right now I would recommend a Moto G7 because it's 150 bucks with discounts, which is pretty cheap for a nice model phone. So that's, personally I'm using a LG, and this has a replaceable battery in it, so I can, if I've been to live stream, my batteries wear out, I can replace them. Most smartphones that you buy nowadays, you can't replace the battery. So you should think about getting an alternative battery source, which starts complicating your game a little bit here when you're starting to live stream. Right now there's 4 platforms that are in pretty common use here in the United States for live streamers. I started out with Ustream, and they're still in business, and they're still worth checking out, even though they were bought up by IBM. But it's because of consolidation that's been going on with the live stream, because for years I was using Ustream, and they were bought up by IBM, and then they shut it down to live streaming for a while, and so I quit using it, and I didn't go back from it. I started using Facebook Live. Right now I think that the battle for market share is probably going to go with Facebook, because YouTube, it's between Facebook and YouTube. And YouTube, you have to have 1,000 subscribers now to your YouTube page before you can even start live streaming. And I just don't have the energy to sit there. I spend a lot of time on Facebook building up followers, because this is what we're talking about. The most important part of your live streaming game is going to be, if you want people to watch your videos, your live streams, is you have to really work on your social media. And that really means like making friends on Facebook, and I'm going to jump back over to Twitter again and start live streaming on Twitter, because I need to build up my followers on that as well. And they kind of had a synergistic principle. The more that you live stream to your followers, generally the more followers you get, because more people know who you are, and so on and so forth. But for somebody who's just first starting out, I would recommend Facebook Live. It's very simple to operate. All you have to do is hit one button go to the Facebook app, and then you hit one button and you're live. You enter in the title of it. Another thing that I haven't mentioned, and this is my pet peeve about live streamers, the world over, it's for newbies mostly, is everybody holds their cameras like this when they do a live stream. It's like peeping through a keyhole. So always remember, I'm just going to pull this out. If you're going to do this more than just casually, like if you're just doing it casually, don't waste your money on buying a lot of equipment. You can just do it by, you can hold your phone like this, most people can, for up to a half an hour or so. But if you're going to be out there and you really are like, you do more than one live stream and you want to get regular with it, I would recommend purchasing a monopod, right? Or if you're going to do it indoors, have a tripod. But monopods work the best for outdoors because they're easy to carry, they fold up to be really small. This telescopes out, so if you get behind a crowd of people, you can get it up in the air, right? Then the second thing you might want to consider purchasing is a mount that you can put your phone in. And it's real basic, and you just pull that out. Alright, switch it to the bottom, and then close it. Turn the handle a couple of times, and there you go. And this will allow you to hold the camera really still, and as you can see, you can leverage it on your knee, or you can just go like that, and just on the floor. And this is usually stable enough for your camera because it's real important, because we're not using we're using little tiny lenses, and to hold the camera really still. You don't want to be going around too much like this, like you would your head. You want to go real slow, because if you go fast, it doesn't give the lens time to focus it on anything. And also it doesn't give the LED, which most people watch your live streams through. It'll just be like a big blur on the screen. So make sure that you hold the camera really still, and you try to get as close to your subject as you can. And if you can go further back, it's nice, but usually the closer you get, the better picture you get, and it makes it easier for people to see, because now we're getting to the most important part of all this, is your connection to the internet. And like if you're at home, it's not such a big deal, or if you're in a place like here, like the Omni, it's not a big deal because they have a wireless network here, Wi-Fi. But when you're out in the field or you're indoors at a place, you don't know if they're going to have a connection or not. So your internet connection, your 4G light connection is your most important part of what you're doing, because the bandwidth is going to be the determining factor in the quality of your broadcast. So make sure that it's a good idea to show up about 15 minutes to half an hour before you do at the site of where you're going to be doing your live streams from, just to check it out, to make sure that you have enough bandwidth, just like you do anything else, to check it out, the physical location. And then in addition to the physical location, if you're going to do a live stream of a subject, make sure that you Google it up or do some quick research into what you're going to be covering, so you know enough, because then we're going to get into another phase of live streaming in a second here. Does anybody have any questions so far about anything? Yes. One, two.
One question was, for example, like I live with my brother, he's got Xfinity. I just found out that I can just take a number from his account, throw it on my phone, and then I get Xfinity wherever it is. Just send off whatever network is around. So it's something that's worth knowing about, and knowing that you don't have to own Xfinity, you just have to know someone who has it. And I don't know how many, I got to ask them, they don't know shit about it, but I can just use it, because everywhere I go, and I think I have it on my phone, it's so weird, your phone does shit, you don't forget it's going to do it. And then I just want you to, and someone comment on sound quality.
Okay, we'll go back to
Can I
that.
ask him a question?
Yes.
Why does that matter?
What's your bandwidth?
Explain that.
Okay, well, you're trying to get an internet connection. And if you don't have a good internet connection, the quality of your broadcast is going to suffer. It's going to be, and it'll drop. It'll be dropped consistently. You know, you know how you get the little wheel that goes around and around and never stop. That's what happens.
What's the minimum bandwidth, do you think that's?
Oh, well, it's a minimum 1080.
10 what?
I mean, you can have a 4G is about the minimum you can deal with. Usually you have to have at least 3 or 4 bars for it to work.
Okay, I know
You had
what
questions?
Oh, yeah, when you're using a monopod, is there a way to start and stop the recording without having to bring the whole thing down and hit your...
Well, you could, no, it's for photographs, you could set it for that way, like say cheese kind of a thing. But it doesn't matter on a monopod because one thing about doing live streams, it's really nice to be technically precise and to run, you know, to be a cinematographer and being able to, you know, frame all these beautiful shots and everything. But the quality of your live streams depend more on the action that's going on around you. And so you have to make sure that when you're out there that you're doing your live streams, like part of the ethical considerations is you're not out there to be like, there's a lot of people that do it too. They're in there for ego and building up their own ego. They're going to do their live streams. And this is, and what's his name, Tim, there's a guy named Tim Pool who's kind of like that, where he is like more important than the people he's live streaming. And that's not the way you want to be. You want to make sure that your subject is the most important thing, what you're doing. And, you know, like it's why it's important if you're doing it for political purposes to make sure that you're consistent with your politics. This gets into another thing is like when you're on your social media, you're going to have to be working these different issues so people can watch your live streams, right? Because you're going to spend as much time tweeting and posting on Facebook to get people to watch it, if you're seriously interested in doing something as a news project. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. The apps that you would use, you can just use the basic Facebook app, right? Not the Messenger, but the regular Facebook app for your phone, for Android. And then for Twitter, if you want to try Twitter, they're both equally have, you know, their good points and their bad points. I'd also recommend Periscope, which is the app for Twitter. And then Ustream has an app too as well that you can load on your phone. And they don't take up a lot of space. And so you would those are the 3 main ones that I would try, right? And where the Facebook has its advantage over, depends on how many followers or how many friends you have, to where, you know, it's more advantageous for which platform to use more than anything else.
What's a bar?
Oh, a bar is just a little thing on your phone. You know, it's got 4 bars, that means you have full connection. And 3 is like a little less, right?
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah,
and
right.
usually, since we're in an urban area, the bandwidth thing is not as big of an issue as it used to be, right? Because it used to be you couldn't go up on campus in Berkeley and live stream because they didn't have a cell phone tower up there. So, question?
Yeah, do you use a selfie stick instead of a monopod?
I'm sorry?
Could you use a selfie stick instead of?
Yeah, that'll be
That's a
fine.
great idea, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like if you're just first getting started, yes,
Is
right?
there any other ones like ready to go?
Right.
But yeah,
But the nice thing is these are really sturdy, and you're going to be in a lot of action sometimes. And like I've had tear gas fired at me, I've had police try to beat me up with nightsticks to get me to move, even in a wheelchair. In New York, they tried to push me out of my wheelchair, where I had to wear a seatbelt in my chair. I've been lifted and carried out of my wheelchair when I was in Turkey. So I've been all over the world doing this, and so you have to, that's what I'm trying to say, why you want to keep it simple, is because you're going to get placed in dangerous situations if you do this often enough, and you want to get to the cutting edge of something and get some real good shots, so people can see exactly what's going on. You know, I've got one friend of mine right now, Ramsey Orta, who's in prison right now for live streaming, or filming the cop strangling I Can't Breathe, right? And he's in prison right now because he got set up by the police for videotaping.
Oh, yeah, the guy from Brooklyn.
Yeah, so you have
His
to
name
be-
is Eric Gardner.
That's sick.
Yeah. So Eric Garner, yeah, I'm sorry. So, this is gonna get into a little part.
They arrested
Action
him at
part.
that point, or later on they said?
Later.
Later on, they said
Much
later.
later.
So, I'm gonna take a quick break here, so if you wanna take over. for a
Yeah,
bit.
great.
Yeah.
Please.
I just had one question. Since the internet connection is best, is there any, like, let's say if you're really into this and like this project or whatever, what would you suggest, what kind of, like, service?
Oh, I didn't say that, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, being poor myself, I couldn't afford AT&T or Verizon, so I just go with Metro PCS. For $60, I pay every month, which is, a lot of money, but that entitles you to unlimited bandwidth and turns your phone into a hotspot. And I have very rarely ever been dropped by them. And I've been satisfied with the service that I've gotten,
So Metro PCS,
especially now.
that's the phone service, unlimited data and all that, so you just connect to that, you just turn on cellular, right?
Yep.
It could be AT&T or anything else, right?
Well, yeah, you can use AT&T or Verizon, they charge you more,
Okay.
and they don't give you unlimited bandwidth.
Yeah, it's another provider besides AT&T or Verizon. Then there's Metro PCS, which is a bit cheaper and gives unlimited data.
Can you do that through Google?
Yeah.
Hang up or hang out or Google Voice?
Google tried to do live streaming, but they never really were able to. They have YouTube. So if you're going to live stream, you can try, like I said, you need 1,000 subscribers now. But YouTube is an arm of Google, and yeah, they'll let you live stream, sure. Yeah. It's just that YouTube, it's harder to build up your audience. And I don't know, there's just something about it that I find to be very alienating, and I just don't like it. And I'm always getting, and this is, well, when I say, I got more I want to talk about here, more ethical stuff, like, maybe I guess I should just go ahead and say it while I'm thinking about it. After you're done with your live streams, you're going to want to archive them somewhere. Right now, you'll have to peel those videos, even though the Facebook says you can download them anytime, same with Twitter, you're still going to have to peel them off the page of where you live streamed them from. And there's just, like, you just get an add-on in your browser that's like, it's called Get Video, and it'll allow you to download your own live streams, because that's what it's became. Used to be with Ustream, you could upload it right to YouTube. That's if you use Ustream. Whereas the other ones, you got to peel it off the page. But you're going to want to archive them. You're going to want to archive them. And when you upload them to YouTube, you're going to get a lot of copyright calls because they have an AI that checks your video to make sure you're not rebroadcasting somebody else's intellectual property. But if you're doing this as a nonprofit, or a person who's a journalist, they have what's called fair use, and then you can just contest it on that and say, I have a fair use because this was incidental. Like, I'm not here trying to broadcast somebody's music, because I have it happen to me all the time. I'll go to a demonstration and somebody will play like something like We Are Family or Essence, for instance, and that'll show up on the background of my news, and then I'll get flagged by YouTube. You have a copyright violation. And I always look at it and I say, well, I have a right to fair use because I'm a journalist, and I don't charge money for this, and so I've never lost it.
Can you explain fair use, just briefly?
Fair use is a concept that if you're a journalist and you're not making money on something and you're reporting the news, it's something that's called incidental to the collection of your news broadcast. Right?
Is that how many bars is the song?
No. It's an intellectual concept, a legal concept. And it's incidental in the collection of something. It's like if you're going fishing and you're fishing for trout or some kind of like sea bass, and you get a couple of crabs in there, right? And those are incidental to the catch.
Right.
Well, that's kind of the way this works with broadcasting. You had your big net out there, and you were doing a news story, and you caught somebody playing their radio with We Are Family on it, and it gets flagged. And that's even happened to me where I was actually live streaming a benefit concert where I had permission from the band and the people that I was live streaming, and then when I go to post it on YouTube, the record company flags me. And I have to get into this big legal battle with the record company because the agents didn't know that their performers had given me permission and signed a contract to have me do this. So if you're going to be doing this for a while, you're always going to face challenges to your right to live stream. So remember to fight for those rights and challenge a lot of things on YouTube, because just because YouTube says something doesn't make it legal or make it right. And a lot of times they're wrong. You know, and you're going to have people that want to try and censor you on your live streams, like if you get good at it. So that's how you know when you're getting good. There's like a lot of my comrades in Missouri, in St. Louis, where they had the Black Lives Matter protests at Ferguson. One person got killed by the police there, we think, because of the live streams that he was doing, because he exposed the police department there for all this wrongdoing and everything like that. And then the next thing you know, the guy was only 32 years old. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but he was 32 years old and he had a mysterious traffic accident, and nobody really, and 6 other activists have also disappeared there. So we think it's the police department, but nobody really knows for sure. But that's a really, you know, we're talking about a different situation. And hopefully most of you folks won't be put in that kind of situation. Another little part of audio I'm going to interject in here that makes live streams different is because you're shooting in a longer, with a longer time frame. So there's going to be places where there's going to be a lot of dead air. Well, not always a dead air, but you know, when there's nothing going on. And a lot of stuff that you're pointing when you're doing live streams is that people are not going to know where you're at, what you're doing or whatever, and it's up to you to provide context for that video. And context is actually, like he was saying, it's like your vocal, like you placing like commentary on the video actually makes the video more valuable.
There you go.
Which is why it's more important sometimes to research stuff before you go out, so you know what you're talking about, because there's going to be times when you're going to have to say something in order to keep people's interest, because if you're just shooting a cold thing and you're just shooting action without providing the context for it, it doesn't mean anything to most people that are watching it.
Yeah.
So remember to provide, talk about the history of something or whatever, or let people know what's going on there, where you're at, who it is that's speaking, or whatever, you know, for just so it makes it more interesting. And
and to add on to that, one thing that just pops in my mind is that text I was talking about and researching beforehand, if you copy that to your phone before you live stream, you can then get ready to live stream your video and paste that text right into the description. So once you go live, it's in there and people understand what's going on. Because often you live stream and like, you're going to sit there and write out the whole time. I mean, yeah, maybe, but there might be spelling errors and you're going live and it's on there the whole time and it's hard to edit while you're going live and stuff like that.
you can virtually impossible.
Yeah, virtually impossible. There you go.
The other thing that you want to be consideration, and this is what makes live stream the king of a video, is that you have direct contact with the people that are actually watching the video in real time. And that means a lot, because now you've taken your technology and you moved it up to the next level to where you can actually do something with it, where it's not a passive medium anymore, where it's something that's proactive, and you can generate excitement on the other end from people that are watching it, and actually get them to take action if you have a well thought out live stream with a good time frame with it, so it allows people, because it's going to take people, it's going to take 20 minutes for you to get a really good audience, right? So that's why you have to stay on for a long time. And then once you get people excited, you can do things like provide telephone numbers of elected officials or businesses that they need to call in order to protest this thing. And that has a really huge impact when it's happening, like you have a protest and there's people that are actually calling up that business or that governmental organization, like at the same time that there's people out front. It really rattles them. And it also, this multiplies the energy of the people that are protesting, right? Because now you have an online audience where you have the real people that are there, and then you have yourself, and then you have the people that are online watching it. And those people can be very powerful, because and most of the time, there's going to be more people watching than there's going to be more people than there are people that are attending the protest or whatnot. So it's important to keep those people interested, because those are the people that you bear your main responsibility as a journalist to. Is you have a responsibility to the people that you're covering, but your real responsibility for the most part is the people that are watching, because you're trying to provide information to them and in real time. And so that's what makes it a lot different than doing video. It's working in real time with people that are watching. And it actually creates like synergy, because people, because I monitor a lot of live streams all day long. I'm looking for them myself. And I like to share people, like I like to get more of an audience for these people as well, because these are all people that are basically on our side. And so that's real important, because you can magnify the power of these things. If you're just working with a small groups of people and you're retweeting it and you're sharing what people are doing, well then this really gets the word out really fast, and the stuff goes viral like that. We knew that when Occupy was going on, I would go online, I'd be online for 10 minutes, and I'd already have like 2,000 people watching. So remember the power of the people that are watching, right, in the real time, and always pay attention to them. And you can actually have conversations with them as you're doing things, and really have the audience ask questions like, like, look, I want to, add, invite people, just like we're doing here in live. Well, this is something that you have to consider your audience, that you're talking to them live too as well. So.
Is that the one that's live and then all these comments can roll up?
Yeah, the comments are all inside. And you can have conversations with people that way. And the other thing too is that a lot of times the audience of people that are watching are able to watch you back, and they'll let you know where the police are at, because they're monitoring police radios and things like that. And it's always a good idea to put a shout out. Like if this is just like really extreme, most live streams are going to be real peaceful, right? We're just giving you like the maximum thing that might happen, but yeah, it does affect people, and it does affect what's going on in the real world too. So.
Yeah, and just a few more tips onto that is, like, if you have a script or something that you're putting in the description that talks about what's going on, you want to repeat that throughout the broadcast, because there's new people coming in, there's points that get like low activity, and then you can just like do the monologue, say the paragraph, say where we are, what's going on today, kind of a repeat for new people coming in. And yeah, they're interactive, like as people comment, you can see it on your screen, and you can talk to them, and then you can ask them, hey, can you post this right now? Can you share this right now on your page? And then more people come in, and you can get ways that they can engage. So just wrapping up the last points, we were at the end of number 4, audio for during filming. And one last point I didn't want to miss was that, like as we were talking about being close to someone and having the microphone close to someone, often at a protest there'll be amplified sound coming out of a speaker. Mm-hmm. And that's a good source for audio. So if you're filming and you're like, oh, there's a really great shot of like everyone and it's all the way in the back, but then people are like talking about stuff next to you, you're going to hear them talking about stuff next to you. So you might want to like, grab a shot of that, you can edit in, but then when the real important speeches are happening, the audio, the most important part that you want to have a full like coverage of what people are saying, because that's going to be where you're pulling a lot of like facts and best stories and things like that. You want to be close to that speaker. You don't have to be right up next to it, but within distance that it's the loudest thing definitely around you, and then your phone's capturing that audio as well. With a phone, you can't have headphones in while you're recording the audio, so you can't monitor it, which is a downside because of the simplicity of it. There are apps you can download that give you a bit more options, so you can look for like video recorder app or other ones that are more advanced that might be able to show you the waveforms as they come on. But if you plug in your headphones, it might detect it as a microphone and then use a microphone that's next to your mouth. So you want to like not use headphones when you're recording. But the next point is reviewing. It's always good if you have a lull, or you're in the middle of filming, or you just filmed the interview and you're like, wow, that was really good, I have a few minutes, I'm going to review it. So go into your gallery, look at the video, hit play, plug in the headphones there, so like, because there's so much noise around, you can plug in the headphones, listen, and be like, okay, now that I'm looking, I'm in a shady spot, oh, it looks good, it's not too bright, it sounds good, most importantly, and if it doesn't sound good, then you want to start to troubleshoot it. What happened? Was it too loud? The noise in the background was too much. The microphone's not working. The lab, I forgot to turn it on or something like that, or it wasn't plugged in all the way. And then you can grab that person again and be like, sorry, can we do it again? Something wrong happened. Or fix it so your whole day isn't ruined because of a technicality that you didn't catch while filming. So always good to review your stuff while you're doing it and just check to make sure you're capturing everything the way you think you are. And then at the end I put coverage, which is more just like ideas around what generally makes like a good video and what like the basic recipe is for grabbing that wide shot where you see as many people as possible. Getting shots of banners or signs closer. Getting shots of people who dress up or want to be seen or who are at the front of the march. Getting shots of the speakers there or people you interviewed, so you can also like incorporate images of them at the protest as cutaway shots or something like that. But really, just that range of further thinking, let's get some shots that are further away and wider, let's get some shots that are closer and more intimate, let's get close-ups on really nice details that I think look really good, really beautiful, show what's going on. In terms of composing, you're in the horizontal view, and then there's this idea called the rule of thirds, where you break the screen up into thirds. So you have 2 lines going up and down like a grid and 2 lines going across. Kind of looks like a hashtag. And so you want to put people's faces or objects into a third of the screen. So if someone's speaking, like let's say, for instance, if these two are talking, and this is my friend doing the interview, and this is the person I'm interviewing, I want to set up the shot so I'm not like cutting off his head too much. I want to give him a little space above the head. And as you see, if the frame looks like this, about 2/3 up is the face. And then you want to give room over to the side so they have looking distance. They're not right in the middle of the screen. So if they are looking to the side and speaking to someone, or they're a speaker on stage, you want to put them to the side of the screen a little bit so the way that they're speaking opens up and you see stuff, so they're not at the edge too much or it looks awkward. So the rule of thirds is one thing that I'm just going to mention now, but as we pull out our phones and start practicing, I can show you more about what that looks like and what good composition would look like, and I can look over your shoulder and make suggestions and things like that. At the bottom I put some websites which are really great. Witness.org is probably the best. It's all like how to film a protest. There's a lot of video content on there. There's like 5 steps, 5-minute videos that talk about preparation, filming, after, know your rights, that kind of stuff. How to film on phones. A lot of the stuff that we went over, there's way more details there. There's no film school if you want to get into more advanced techniques and things like that. It's a free resource for information on filming. And then there's a National Lawyers Guild, which has stuff on like know your rights.